Welcome back to Andy Tube, and this is part 3 of a series for the restoration of a Singer clamshell style foot pedal or foot controller. And in this part 3 we're going to inspect the carbons and the carbon resistance unit. So let's get started. This entire thing is called the carbon resistor unit, and it's much like one of the cylinders inside the button style foot pedal, but in the clamshell style there is just one row of carbons, but it has the same kind of carbonized contact ends, and inside here are the little carbon discs. And if you look at this, you'll see that hopefully you'll see that one end is longer. When I push this in flush, see how long that end is? And when I do this one, it's a little bit shorter. So the longer end, when you open it and you're looking at the clamshell, the longer end will go to your left up against the actuating spring. And when the actuating spring is depressed, you'll see this part bends in against there, and that's what makes the carbons move closer together. So the way to open this up, there's little retaining rings in there, and the way to open it up is just to push on one end until the other pops off. But just be careful when you're doing that, and make sure it's pointed like down, because if you hold it like that and push it, the pressure you'll need to pop that ring out, the disc will go flying 2 or 3 feet out. So I'm going to take the longer end and I'm going to just point it down here. Well, I think I want to use one of the paper towels, and I should have put my glove on, but I'm going to point it down here like that and push and see if I can pop that retaining clip off the other end. I'm trying to hold this about 1/8 of an inch above the towel so it's got room to come out, maybe 1/4 inch. Whoa! Okay, if you got good ears, you heard the end contact go flying off my work desk. Here is the little retaining clip. It's like a C clip. It's very, very thin. And then here's some of the carbons. So I'm going to want to just gently empty them out here. Boy, there's a lot of them, huh? Okay. And here is the other contact. That's the long one. So you may be able to see in here that retaining clip. And there's really no reason to take it out. It's hard enough to put one back in, so don't take them both out if you don't have to. So there is what I call the carbon tube, and one little C-clip, and here's a whole bunch of carbons, and someplace on my floor is the other end carbon contact. And you can see I'm getting carbon all over me, and here's discs. So I'll tell you what, let me go get this off the floor so I don't lose it or crush it, and I'll get a glove on, which I apologize I should have done, and then we'll come back and we'll start inspecting these carbons. Be right back. Hey, look what I found. I found it. I found the little guy. It wasn't too bad. So let's see if I can get both of these in there. So the one on your left is taller or longer than the one on your right. So we might as well inspect these while we've got them. Oh, there went my carbon stack. And we'll look around the sides of them, around the edges, and these look clean, don't they? There's a little tiny pitting right there. The end is just a little burning, and the back side has just a little, very minor burning around the edge. No problem there. Whoa, look at this one. There's some burnt marks. And a little bit heavier pitting on the edge. Let's see the contact in the front. Yeah, a little more carbon deposits there. But look at that backside. Gonna have to do something with that. And then get these up here. Maybe I'll take a quick picture of those to show you what they look like up close. If I can get the light on them right here. Okay, so we can zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so you can see we have our tedious little job ahead where we want to inspect the carbons. And since this end contact looked burnt, I want to look at the end carbon for it, and it is also got the matching burn mark there in the center. You see that? I think you can see that. So the ones that I want to work on, I'm going to put down towards me, and the other ones that look okay, I'm going to put up. So that one's got some burn. Usually when you see that heavy wear like that, the first 2, 3, 4 might have burn marks on them. So that's not going to surprise me. When a carbon is really fresh and in terrific shape, it's kind of got a light gloss to it. Like, you see how this edge towards the bottom has more of a gloss, and up at the top here the edge is dull and darker. Yee. So let me go through some of these and pick out a few good and bad, okay? And then I'll show you what I'm going to try and do with the bad ones. But these are not crumbling. Like if you watch the button foot controller and the fried one that Michael Lang donated to me, and the carbons were really brittle and fry. See, these I can hold and pick up, and they're not cracking to pieces. Although I see here's one right here that has broken right in the middle of the stack, huh? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Oh, look. And when I tried to pick it up, it broke some more. So let me go through these and kind of sort them, because that's going to take a while, and then we'll come back and we'll see what we can do with them and how many that we can salvage, or what's the deal. Okay, so I'll see you when I get them sorted. Okay, I'm back. I finished my count and my separation, and what I've got up at the top is 88 carbons that seem to have no effect, no defects or burn marks or pits or cracks or anything. I found 23 that had burning on them from fairly severe, mostly burned surface to just barely burned around the edges. And remember, as I said, is the tube, when you open up the clamshell, the longer carbon contact is on your left, and that was the one that was burnt. The shorter one, which is to your right, looked pretty darn good. And interesting enough, all of these burnt carbons and the cracked half were on the left. So 23 burned plus one had a little bite, a little chip out of it on the left. So 24 affected. 88 not. That's 112 plus a half, and the other half I never found, which is interesting to me. And I think it was a deal at the factory, and I'm thinking maybe that's why some of these are so burnt and the others are so clean. Because usually I find a little bit of burning on both ends and so forth. So I'm wondering if this half created an imbalance, and the electricity had to build up on the left quite a bit before it could go through to the right. What we got to deal with. So one of the methods that I use, first let me say, I've read before about people with pencil erasers on these, and I never had much luck, even like a brand new soft eraser, and trying to hold it down and rub it lightly with an eraser. It just seemed I destroyed everything. So I've been more in the habit of just taking a paper towel on a hard surface that doesn't flex and trying to just kind of scrape off, go around in circles and scrape off the carbon. And you can see it's having a pretty good effect, and this was one of the worst. So if it's deeply pitted, that's pretty good. If it's deeply pitted, I've even used this 800 or 900 grit paper, and of course I rub it a lot lighter because it's going to take off more carbon than a paper towel, but I'll run it around on that, and it's starting to look pretty good, a lot better anyway. And you can see what I've taken off here doing that. So that's been pretty effective for me. Let me take one of these that's pretty badly burnt. It's got a little gloss in the center, but that's about it. And the other side also has some. And let's see about rubbing it with the ball tip of my finger on a paper towel for a while and seeing how much of that carbon I can get off. You can tell I'm getting something off because the paper towel is getting darker, right? So let's see how that did. Okay, there was the burnt side. What do you think? Not bad, huh? This is the side that wasn't burnt as bad. So let me try that. So this isn't a perfect method, but if the discs are not too brittle, you can do this and you can get a lot, you can get most of that carbon dust and burnt carbon off of there. And I do it on a hard surface so the disc won't flex. If I did it on a rag or something, I find I'm more likely to crack it. And like I said, if it's pretty deeply pitted, I've used the sandpaper. That's pretty good. I still have some around the edges, so I got the bulk of it off. Let me try. Yeah, see, before I could spin this around, but it's getting smooth now, so I can only kind of push it back and forth. I can't really control it. It's too slippery, which is a good thing. There we go. This, whoop, yeah. Okay. So there's my new and improved restored carbon, or rehabilitated. So I put that on the good side here, and I have about 22 more to go. Let's take one of these that just had a little bit of damage. That side looks pretty good. This side is a little ring up here, like a little toenail of the black carbon, and a little spot right there. So let's see if just a paper towel can look at that. It's nice and glossy, no burn marks. I'm hoping that gloss is going to show up. I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't. But look, I'm an honest guy. You can trust me. Famous, huh? So, and the other thing is the contact point of this always is going to have some carbon deposits. Always. So, you should be able to rub these off. And I'm not sure why I tend to use a paper towel. Let's try this old oil rag here, although we don't want oil on any of the carbons. But it's got a little more texture. Yeah, I think that's why, because it always bunches up. That's why. So I usually just use a paper towel, and that's still a little pitted now that I've got a lot of the carbon out. I see some pitting there. So now I'm going to try my 900 grit sandpaper, or I think some people call this emery cloth. But I've gotten out most of that pitting. So I think that's going to be quite an improvement over how it was before. So my experience with this is when you have a loss of power to the motor, people have come to me, something's wrong with my motor. It's straining, it doesn't go as fast and stuff. That about 90% of the time well, maybe 80, I'll find it in the foot pedal out of adjustment or bad carbons. Maybe 10 or 15% of the time I find that it's lack of oil or grease that's making a sewing machine run slow. And I'd say 5% or less is actually problems with the motor, and on the models that I do. And if it is the motor, it's more likely one of the carbons is worn out, and it's actually got the spring for the carbon hitting the commutator and throwing off sparks, and that's pretty easy to tell. But anyway, if you have a really bogged or slowed down machine and you've oiled and greased it, I would think about the foot pedal. So these are cleaning up nice, but you can see I've got quite a few to do. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video and work on these while I listen to the last half of the Arizona Cardinals game. And then I'll come back when these are cleaned up and I'll show you how to put everything back together. And you can watch me fiddle around with this retaining clip, trying to get that back in there. So we'll see you in a little bit. Boom. Okay. Well, I've finished polishing up. Get as much light as I can on here. I finished polishing up the rest of the carbons, and I'm glad I'm done so I could turn off the TV because my Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals, are not doing well. But you remember I had this half that I could never find the other half, and that still held true. I never saw the other half. But I have 4 carbons I'm going to end up eliminating. They either have chips out of the side that are a little too big for my taste, or one was pitted and I kept cleaning it on the paper and the sandpaper, and it just, the deeper and deeper I got into it, it still had pits all the way along this side here, and it got to where the edge started flaking off. And this was one of the pretty bad ones. I think it was about number 3 or 4 in, and it's so wafer thin now I'm just not going to use it. And it is more brittle than the others. So I'm tempted to use these 2 that are kind of slightly chipped out. And I really am, because they just have like a nick in them. And but I think for now I'm going to eliminate them, because that's still going to give me like 108. If I take those 4 out, it's still going to give me 108. So I'll have to adjust for that when I am setting the adjustments. And I took my bottle brush and I brushed this out. And usually what I do is dry brush it first and then put some dish soap, you know, like when you wash dishes in the sink, and a little bit of water, and ran it through there. The crud cutter doesn't seem to do much on carbon deposits. But don't forget that there's this other retention ring in here, and so I was real careful not to loosen that or knock it out, because it is tricky getting it back in there, for me anyway. So for as bad as those 24 carbons looked, especially some of them, to be able to, in my opinion, recover 20 of them, I'm pretty happy with that. And so I'm going to set my C-clip aside, and my 2 little ends, the shorter one and the longer one, I'm happy with how they came out. And I'm going to transfer these, what I'll call the good carbons, over to a clean paper towel. Of course, some of the broken pieces went, but you can see how much carbon came off here, just on those 20 to 24 pieces plus the end pieces. But the process worked pretty good for me. When I tried the pencil eraser, I think I got maybe 1 out of 10 or 12 that I could recover. I kept breaking them. So